It is now 7:33 and I'm calling us back to order in open session. I'm going to open the floor for public input. There's no guests in the room. Is there anyone online who wants to have any input? And I think there's actually no guests.
Just Cassie.
Yeah, there's Cassie, but I think, yeah, she's not unmuting. So, okay. So we're going to move to new business and have updates on sites under consideration. We got 2 reports today. And so Jeff, I would love it if you would talk us through the reports and people can ask any questions if they have any.
Can you make Jeff and Steve co-host, please?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you should be able to unmute on and off Jeff and Steve. So
Hi. All right. So we did get the reports from the civil engineer, Fuss & O'Neill, for both 984 Mass Ave and 1300 Mass Ave. And by and large, they follow the same path that we had been talking about before when we've given you interim updates. So they touch on the well. For 1300, they touch on the public well scenario. We don't need a public well, and we'd have to discontinue that. We need a private well there. They touch on the wetlands and setback challenges for 1300, although it's not been delineated and it's a little unclear exactly where they would fall on 1300. That's work that would need to be done if that's a site the town wants to pursue. They do touch on that as encumbrances. And for 1300, they talk about the septic system, which we've already talked about as well. And that I'm not quite sure exactly in the past how much has been explained about that, but just real briefly, the existing septic system, in their words, can be reused for the use of the fire station. Even though it's designed for a larger population, it won't function as efficiently, but it will be it could be potentially usable. They do want it to be investigated by a specialist, but it's something that could potentially work. Alternatively, we could design a smaller system for the site closer to the building, because this, of course, extends further out into the adjoining property next to 1300. So that's all good information to have. There was no sight lines study done on for the traffic on the street, so they speculated that that should be done. But I think from what I've heard in the past, the fire chief said it seemed like it was a good, or at least acceptable entrance from the road there. And that's for the most part what they had to say. I think, the biggest concern for 1300, in their words, was the quality of the soil conditions and whether they're appropriate for a septic or a leaching field. Obviously, if we can continue to reuse what's there, that's probably in the town's best interest. If we have to make a new one there, that's when they get into testing those soils to determine how that could be designed. And I think that they say that generally speaking, it seems doable, considering the size of the site and how big the fire station might be, that there'd be space on the site for that septic system wherever it would end up. They give some recommendations on what next steps to perform, although I don't think it's necessary for the town to rush out and perform these next steps before we pick a site. Their next steps were to perform an inspection of the septic system to see if it complies with the current Title V requirements, to prepare an estimated sewerage flows for the new fire station, to confirm they're less than for the existing system, which I think is obvious on the face of it, but I think that, it's a box to check. They would want to do test holes to confirm the soil conditions for percolation rates, determine with the DEP how to extinguish the existing public water drinking supply, delineation of the wetlands, and a site distance analysis, which I already mentioned.
Looks like Steve has a comment.
Yes, thanks, Mary. Jeff and I guess maybe Mike, in regard to the report for 1300 and the inspection of the existing septic system to comply with Title V, wouldn't that be on the owner because they're selling or potentially selling the property to us? Like anybody, any homeowner would have to make sure that their septic system was in compliance before they sold it, unless and Mike, maybe you can tell me, has there been any verbiage of if we sell it, we're selling it as is?
There has not been any verbiage like that. I believe that it would be on the seller to have the Title V check, but I'm not positive about that. That was something I'd have to check.
Is residential.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would expect the seller, that would be a condition of the sale, but you know, anything's possible in a negotiation, I suspect, but.
Right. I mean, because I think Jeff's right. Some of these recommendations we don't necessarily have to do now, but there may be a couple that we might want to consider. And I think certainly that bullet point, we need to know that from the seller, if we're heading in that direction.
Here's my dilemma. We want to go to town meeting and get town meeting to approve the sale in March. But we wouldn't actually go through with the sale till that's done. And so would we have to wait for them to do, because we could potentially go forward with 2 pieces of property. If we wait, then we won't have it to make our decision. But, you know, I don't know how that plays out. Do we need it to make our decision?
Boils down to the costs that we would put into the overall project budget for the construction of a new septic system. And if we can confirm that the existing is complies with Title V, then we can assume that, you know, with minor, you know, alterations, we could probably not have to count the cost of an entire new septic system. Not a ton of money, but certainly an impact to the project budget. So I think that's where it hits us, is really on the budget perspective. And it's, go ahead.
We could vote up to 4.5 million and condition on purchase and sale agreement or something, and then we can negotiate down if there's a septic issue.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting, is that, you know, we build it into the budget at the worst case scenario. We have to build a septic, which is, you know, again, not a ton of money, but still an impact. And then if it finds out we can reuse the septic system, then that money does not have to be spent by the town.
Did we hear from the seller that they're now willing to not sell us the piece across the street? Because I thought we were using that as a.
Not here.
We're like, yeah, we're going outside the scope of what we should be talking about public.
Yeah,
Okay.
not here.
Mike, I did just check, and it is required both commercial and residential. There's no exception for commercial.
Yeah,
properties.
if they bought the property less than 2 years ago, they had a report done, we can look at that.
Okay. And so from this list of recommendations, is there anything that needs to be done before we make a decision and before town meeting, understanding we're on a tight deadline and a tight budget?
Well, I think on 984, you know, the
Not
soil
here
value.
yet.
What?
We still need to go through 984. So I mean for 1300 right
Okay,
now.
sorry.
Mary, I have a couple comments.
Just one second. Jeff, can you answer that question? Or Steve? Is there anything in this list that we need to do before we make a decision or before town meeting?
Jeff, I don't know whether delineation of the wetlands would be an issue, but we know it's there.
It's frozen.
Oh, he said Maria said Jeff's frozen.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can
That's why
come
this
back to
time-
this question. So let's try to remember, we want to ask wetlands. Matt?
Am I confused or was that person confused about which way east and west was? He talked about going across the street for the cross Burroughs Road to, I call it Burroughs Avenue, we call it, to the septic system, and that was going west. So.
Isn't that west?
No, it would
east.
be
It's
east.
east. It's east.
So I think they were a little confused there. I was also concerned that he speculated that perhaps the reason that the septic system is across Burroughs Road is because the soil might not be good enough to have a septic system on 1300. That's what I read.
I thought it also was because of the size building. The capacity of the septic system is very large.
Well,
Right, so they were putting in a much larger septic system, so they did say we anticipate the size of any new septic system will be much smaller than the existing system and therefore easier to locate on the property at 1300.
Jeff's back on the meeting.
Okay,
but he still had some concerns about the soil.
yep,
So that's not something we need to investigate anymore before. we make a
right, so
decision.
that's my big question. From this report, is there anything we have to do before we make a decision and take this to town meeting?
We can always, if we can negotiate the sale of both parcels, then we know that we're covered because we can always use the existing septic system or we make changes to the existing septic system. And,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
I agree. I think that in total, the property has enough space to accommodate a new system in various different configurations and locations, even if the soils don't turn out to be ideal. Now, there's no way to eliminate all risk, but there seems to be adequate space, which seems to be the upshot of what the civil engineer is stating. I think, like any good engineer, they're trying to alert you to every single potential minor flag that might be thrown on this property. But I don't think these amount of things we have to run to ground before picking a site. I think the fact that they have a functioning septic system there is a pretty big, important key. And like Larry was saying, we can address that and maybe even adjust that if need be to make that work for the fire station. So in my conversations with the civil engineer, he's never raised it as a reason that we absolutely should be doing this before we pick the site. He's just said these are things we want to investigate at some point.
What about the delineation of wetlands? Because he did say it's in a riverfront. It's to the west.
Yeah, he wanted to
Well-
determine the extent of the riverfront area.
Yeah, and I think that would, be great to know, just to understand how much room on the site we have to maneuver things. But considering there's a building there, I think we'd be okay building where the building is, but we don't know.
Okay.
So where the existing, I forget what he called it here specifically. I don't know if it's a stream or a water.
Perennial stream. that's
Perennial stream,
located
yeah. There's certain setbacks depending on what it's designated as, and it is surrounded. That's one of the things we've talked about before about some of the drawbacks of 1300. It's surrounded by this wetter area, and what we don't know is essentially how much the setbacks encumber the property that we're on. So we might be a little bit more limited in what we can do there, but until we delineate that, we don't know for certain.
Because it seems like
the
there's two streams potentially, Beaver Brook and
Yeah.
underneath.
The delineation would require time, and it also would require the right seasonality of doing that work. And I'm not a wetland scientist, so I can't say if we did it in December, would we be able to rely upon those results, or we have to do it in the springtime or something like that, where they can see the plant growth to really understand where the actual boundary of the wetlands are. I remember we delineated 502 in order to understand the impacts on that site, but even with the delineation at 502, we were still able to build, or I should say build, but propose buildings within certain setbacks that were going to have to be negotiated with the town's conservation commission on that site. And so even if there were setbacks, there would still be a discussion with Concom on that, on what we were doing in those setbacks.
Okay, any other questions on 1300?
I was curious about the site distance analysis. They're recommending that to occur. Is that just because there isn't anything?
Yeah, they just recommend it because we hadn't done it at that site and we'd done it at many of the other sites. And they do, typical engineering is to be conservative. If you don't know the answer, flag it as an unknown, and this is an unknown in their mind. I would probably defer to the fire chief. I think we have on previous occasions for 1300 and Burroughs Road there, and how that would work for their purposes.
See, that site has the best sight lines of anything we've looked at.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
You agree?
I don't see any problems with the sidelines at 1300.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So 984.
Right. So 984, in some ways, it kind of boils down to a similar topic about septic, but they did, look at everything that they could. They had access to prior permitting documents that the current owner has submitted for prior projects that they wanted to do. So that was actually very helpful to understand what all their design firms have proposed on the site in terms of locations of septic and stormwater items. The nature of the soils is a little unknown. I mean, we did do some of our own test pits, and there were prior test pits that we have access to the data on, but not all of it at the site has actually been dug up. So we don't necessarily know what is in this so-called embankment that has been built on the west-hand side of the site. But we have, a pretty good sense of where we could do septic on this site, and where the groundwater is and where some of the ledge is. So that's good information to have. The civil engineer did assume, again, in a very conservative way, that, the potential would be we would not have access to Sarah's Way to exit fire apparatus and the public. So we would have to make a direct connection onto Mass Ave, and they did the site distance analysis based on that. And that came back adequate, with the exception that we would want to take down some of the vegetation and some of the little slope of the berm there along Mass Ave on the west side of Mass Ave to just increase the site distance on that side. But they felt that that was doable, and since we would own that property, we could do that. So it really wouldn't be an issue. They did opine about the potential that there's an existing well servicing the home that's there, and that maybe could be used for the fire station, but a lot of testing would have to be done to confirm the flow and the quality of that well. But certainly their expectation was reasonable assumption that a new well could be drilled here without any problem, if that old well couldn't be reused for the fire station to provide water. And since we wouldn't be a public water supply, it really wouldn't be an issue. Stormwater, of course, there's nothing there, and they're not really proposing a whole lot, but it seemed, based upon the limited work that was done, that it didn't seem to be a major concern for anybody, that stormwater could be accommodated. And this is kind of similar for both sites, frankly. And then they did have a series of recommendations very similar to 1300. There is a parcel across the street on Mass Ave to the north that has wetlands on it, that this property is within the 100-foot setback of that, so they would want that to be delineated. But in talking to the engineer, he felt confident there was absolutely really no likely impact on what we would need to do for the fire station. We just want to know kind of where it hits the site, so I wouldn't rate that of any concern. Prepare, again, the estimated sewerage flows for the septic system. Again, the fire station is not going to generate a ton. So I think, it would, in his opinion, it would fit onto the site pretty well. The investigation of Sarah's Way is probably a little bit more of a question mark as to whether or not we'd be able to have access to that for public and the apparatus driving out. We kind of speculated that would be our preference, but not knowing, since it's a private way, that kind of just has to get run to ground. But I don't think it's an impediment to the site being selected. And then, like I started with, the soil evaluations on site, just to confirm the septic and stormwater design. And since we've already done that, I think they have a good sense of what's there and it can be done. So, in slight contrast to 1300, I think this is actually better because we have a little bit more information on where we could put septic and stormwater and some of the other designs I've done in the past. So I think that's informed the civil engineer's thoughts here. And generally speaking, it seems, doable. The only other thing that they don't mention as a recommendation, but we've talked about it as a group, is just sort of the nature of the soils and the fill in the embankment area and what that consists of. Because we have not done a design of that site, we don't know how much of that embankment area we'd need to use for apparatus turning area or parking, things like that. Maybe, I don't think the building would be over there, but certainly maybe outbuildings or something. And that's certainly a risk of not knowing and potentially needing to deal with that. But if we don't need that space, there's nothing to say the town has to do anything with it. It would just be a known, thing that the town would have to be dealing with in the future if there's ever any further development on the site. I think the idea would be, from the fire station perspective, to kind of stay more towards the east side of the property anyways, just for ease of access. So that might actually make it a little easier. But that is probably the biggest question mark on this side, is what do we do there? What does that look like? Do we have to do anything with it? Can we leave it? Should we leave it? And so that's, I think, kind of my overlay on top of the civil engineers, but they didn't mention it, but didn't mention it as the part of the recommendations.
And on the bottom of the first page, it says there's a large cleared area in the center of the site that has been flattened and filled, and we don't have any substantial knowledge of the nature of the fill. Given where we think we might site the building, is that problematic in the center of the site?
That is more concerning, and we did propose and will hope to be doing a geotechnical drilling boring program on that site, which will help to give us information before the committee has to make a decision on the nature of that fill material and what implications it has for founding a building. So do we have to remove it to put foundations in? Do we have to put in deeper foundations or piles or some other foundation soil support system, which would increase the cost of the project? That's certainly something we would get information on from the geotechnical engineer at that time. And frankly, depending on where they drill the borings, could in fact get some information on the embankment as well. But we know the embankments fill, and usually the geotechnical engineer would want us to remove that if we're going to put a building over there. But since the building's not likely to be in the embankment, but it is more likely to be in the center where the civil engineers noted, that's the area we're most cautious about and want to understand the depths and the nature of it so that we can adequately put into the cost estimate the costs of putting the building there.
Yeah. Your questions?
There anything that we need to, just like 1300, we need to?
So, yeah, is there anything that we need to do based on these findings that we're not already planning to do? Because we already voted the environmental assessment phase 1 and 2.
Yes, so previously we voted to put in to do the geotechnical borings, which I just mentioned,
Yeah.
And then most recently we did the environmental work, which I think kind of rounds out this site pretty well. in terms of what we can know about it. And I don't see anything on this list or any of the engineers that have mentioned to me that would be additional work that we should be doing and are not.
And on page, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, under site distances, table 1, the intersection site distance from the site driveway looking to the west falls below the measured falls below the required minimum. So do you think this site would require a light?
Well, I think the alterations of the vegetation is what they're saying would take care of that. You know, that the application of a traffic light is probably beyond the site distance consideration. If you have the correct site distance, then we need to look at other factors to determine a warrant for a traffic light. But I think the most critical one was site distance particularly from the fire department's perspective. Now, it may also be something that's simply just a convenience, frankly, you know, depending on traffic volume that the fire department feels might be useful to have beyond that. But since it's a state road, you really need to have a warrant analysis done to determine whether the state will even allow you to put one there, because they just don't want to put traffic lights wherever people want them. They don't want to confuse people or make it less safe for people using Mass Ave. They want to only put them there where it's really needed. So I think the site, you know, if we alter the site distance on the west side, that really takes care of one of the major concerns.
So if we use Sarah's Way, there's no issue. But if we,
That's where there is the issue.
Yeah,
is it?
Yeah.
table 1 is,
It's table 1 is driveway of Sarah's Way.
Oh, okay.
but they did talk about we could reduce vegetation and the kind of the embankment, right? Any other questions?
Yeah, Sarah's Way is owned privately? Is it owned by the landowners that live down Sarah's Way?
It is, it's private, and there are easements on that lower part of it where the current landowner used it, and that would be something where we'd have to have some legal work done and have easements and maybe even some improvements to the bottom part of that road if we were gonna use that.
Would we consider, instead of easements, making it a public road if the owner was amenable? Because we do that, it seems a fair amount at town meeting, we vote.
I think that's probably a larger discussion. I did talk that over with our land use director, and he said it's complicated because it's a dead end road with 3 homes on it. And he doesn't believe that it was built to the same standards the town would require. So if we were to take it over as a public way, we would take on the responsibility of rebuilding it a lot sooner than we might have to. We'd be running, and then we're taking over plowing. So I think I don't think that's off the table, but I think it requires some discussion, probably with legal, probably with our DPW, and some engineers to look at the analysis of how that road was built. Our land use director has some knowledge of how it was built. It just doesn't think that if we were building that public road, we would build it to those same specs.
Would we have to take the public road all the way up to the houses?
That's a question. I
Versus
think
just
there's
that
a
bottom half.
possibility if we have an easement and maybe take responsibility of reconstructing or maintenance up to a certain point.
Right.
I think that might be what I see happening more than taking over the whole road.
Yeah, because
That's
up
part of
there
it.
isn't,
Yeah.
there's woods on both
Yeah.
sides.
Yeah.
That would be a task to build that to standards.
Right.
And it's that versus build a whole new separate entrance at the west side where there is no site problem.
Right,
And what's the cost of doing that versus rebuilding a private way to make it meet public standard, especially considering the amount of weight that's gonna go up and down it all the time with fire apparatus.
And carrying this road.
Yeah.
right.
So the only thing is, I thought when we looked at it last time, that front portion that you're talking about, just building that was ledge, right? That's what I thought, that when we looked at this a few years ago, we were concerned with the ledge in front. to be able to use it to bring the trucks and straight onto Mass Ave. I don't
Yeah,
know that.
there is some
Yeah.
ledge, or at least they hit ledge in some of the test pits there. And there's consideration that in that sort of embankment or berm against Mass Ave, particularly as you go west, you're going to find that ledge there. Now, we believe that on the eastern corner of the site, it's possible to connect to Mass Ave without encountering much or maybe none of the ledge. But that's very close to Sarah's Way. And the question then becomes, can you actually have two curb cuts so close together? And I don't know that that's really going to fly, even though Miss Sarah's Way is private. So it lends more belief in my mind that we find a way, like Mike was saying, to kind of have a public entrance to Mass Ave, and Sarah's Way kind of gets truncated there and kind of comes off the public entrance and creates the private drive after the public entrance has been made, kind of taking over that last portion of Sarah's Way. I think if we try to come out on the west side of the site, there's more of a topography challenge there, and so we're going to spend more money trying to make a driveway over there work.
Yeah, we could also potentially have multiple curb cuts off of Sarah's Way, which might be more convenient for public and for fire truck use.
Yeah.
Rather than having,
no
we
question
wouldn't have
that-
multiple off of Mass Ave, we'd only have one.
Right.
And the other
There's
thing-
really no question that we would have to upgrade Sarah's Way to carry the heavy loads of the apparatus.
And then the other issue is that Sarah's Way comes out and 975 is trying to develop. They made him move his curb cut from almost directly across from Sarah's Way to the west. And so it's actually spray painted, you can see it. So then if we went west, we would have Sarah's Way. I don't know how the planning board with site approval would be if they had their cut and then we immediately had a cut. So they made him move it specifically to be out of, the connection with
That's right,
Sarah's Way,
yeah.
right? So that would make 3 cuts and that might be difficult because I don't know how far down 975 is going. But that was definitely part of the site plan and that was a change in the site plan during the 8-month hearing that he had, so.
So this might be something we want to explore while other work's going on. Yeah, good. Other
Well, at some
questions?
point, we're gonna have to contact and get permitting application to DOT.
Yeah, that is a consideration for this site, is that there would be another permitting factor which 1300 doesn't have, and that's the Mass DOT permit process, which they have their own timetable
Oh, yeah.
and process
Yeah.
that we kind of have to
And why-
subscribe to, and they have requirements and conditions and all of that. So that would be a cost for this site.
Do you
But-
mean if there's just another curb cut put there? As opposed
If
to
we're-
having 2 curb cuts onto Sarah's Way?
Yeah, if we're doing anything that connects to the states right away, they're going to be part of the conversation.
Anything
So-
different than the Sarah's Way entrance.
Yeah, but even if we're improving the Sarah's Way entrance, we'd still have to talk to the state about it. It would be easier
Right,
because
but-
it's already
Yeah.
an
But
existing.
I was gonna ask if that's an easier conversation. We're gonna
Yeah.
make this better. Versus
100%,
we're gonna leave
yeah.
that and now we need to do a whole new one. So, okay. So that is a maybe on it's definite, but it depends on, it's a scaled kind of
It's a scale, right.
conversation.
And we wouldn't do that until we own the land and we're in design phase, but we do it maybe right at the beginning of design phase.
We would have
Yeah, our
to, we would have to
process-
submit them something, because they don't tend to do informal meetings. I have gone to one fairly recently, but in general, they want to see something, so we would have to give them some kind of a site plan as to what we intend on doing. And then go through their process of, through their portal, for
Yeah, if we-
the reviews.
If we were designing the project here, there would be a little bit of time spent by the engineer completing an initial engineering study and plan that's prepared to the level, like Steve said, of detail that MDOT would actually need to see. And then we would start that process as soon as we possibly can,
Yeah.
because they sometimes take a while to get through it. And it might be, we're getting close to bidding and they're finally getting around to giving us their final level of comments.
Right, that's correct.
All right, that's great. That's really helpful. I think under here, we also want to talk about, we got an estimate from Context because so when we voted all the previous estimates, Context did add more time because we've gone beyond the December town meeting. They added more time, but it was in the analysis for properties we took off the list. So they came forward with an estimate separate from everything else, just for their time through, from January through March. It is I'm gonna say maybe a tight estimate in that they're gonna probably come to fewer meetings, especially as we get to the point where we need less information and that. But Jeff, anything else you want to tell us about this?
No, we just wanted to make sure that if you needed us, we had a mechanism to come to the meetings and all that. It's after, in theory, we have all of the data and the results, and the committee can make some decisions about sites. So there's a possibility that you maybe don't need us for as much time as we have, and certainly we wouldn't bill it if we didn't use it. So we have 13 working group meetings, which is basically January, February, and March, and we have one building committee meeting per month for those 3 months.
Questions, comments? Motion?
Mary. I move, do we have a number on this?
Yeah, $8,400. Oh, amendment 12.
I move
Yes.
we approve amendment 12 in the amount of $8,400.
Second.
Hey, Maria moved, Priya seconded. Any discussion or questions? Okay, I'm gonna take a roll call vote. Alan?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Priya?
Sandra, I.
Maria?
Nilda.
Sarah?
I,
Larry?
Aye.
And Brolin, aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
While we're in this, there are other estimates in here. Mike, do you want to describe? There's an email, the station layout and placement. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure, that's, I think, I don't know if you want to take that as an update, that's regarding the swing space.
Yes.
We could talk about it right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so, as we've discussed, Chief and I have been working on two things for temporary space. One is, at the department, should the project not move forward in some sort of swift manner. And the other one, that's housing for the department. And the other one is, to put, swing space over at the Regency as, come up as a suggestion. So we've continued to work on that, and we received two estimates. And they came from companies that were recommended that Chief and I had not talked with before. And if I miss anything here, Chief, jump right in. So one is from Forts USA, and that was a company that was recommended by someone listening a couple of meetings ago. So Chief and I have had meetings with them, and Chief has had a lot of follow-up conversation. They have forwarded an estimate for kitchen, dining, and a living unit, which is not living space like beds and that sort of stuff. It's more of a place where they can gather and eat. And that came in at $560,000. That's one custom designed and built unit. A decon and decontamination and storage unit, which came in at $405,000. And then another separate third unit for their SCBA unit, and that's at $200,000 for a total of $1,165,000. I've plugged that into the spreadsheet that we're using to estimate this. And you've got pictures of the three different designs that they included. What I've included in our spreadsheet is the least expensive of the layout. And that was the first one. The other two were total about $1.6 million. I didn't use that one because it was more expensive, and two, because the layout they used didn't fit into the parking lot area that we're allowed to lease from the Regency. And then I'll talk about the second one, which is not yet in your packet, but we'll include it on the website. And then, because we just received this about an hour before this meeting, but I can talk about it. and it is the, another price on the apparatus bay. So what we have is a number of fabric bays over steel structures. This other company that we've been talking with, which is also recommended, it's called ClearSpan. And they have designed, custom designed and proposed to build their least expensive apparatus bay, which is one entire apparatus bay unit. It is a steel structure, so it's a corrugated steel structure, which is built on a foundation of a number of concrete blocks. This proposal does not include that foundation. We'd have to do that separately, and it does not include anchoring to the foundation. But that estimate, it's an 8-bay apparatus bay. That's came in at $643,000 approximately, which is more than the estimate that we had. It was over at the old DPW space, which came in at about $608,000. So it's about, you know, where it's $50,000 more.
But there's no foundation or anything.
Right. So it's
And that's not like electrical and all of that. It's not,
correct.
that is truly just for the structure.
That's the structure.
So, okay.
Correct. It does not include electrical. It includes the overhead doors, but does not include the installation of them. It
Well, that's
also,
helpful.
Door kit.
yeah, it also doesn't include the shipping and installation of this, and they're out of Florida, right?
Yeah.
Guys, I'm sorry, Connecticut. They're out of Connecticut. The other company's out of Florida. This one doesn't include shipping, installation, and site work. We don't believe the site work required, but they couldn't confirm that. And the first one I gave you, which was from Forts USA, I think that's everything. And it came in at about $643,000. So I've included that into the spreadsheet that I shared with you before. It actually raised the price of the overall project, and it's up to almost $4.4 million.
That's where the Forts.
What's that?
Using the forts.
From including both Forts and ClearSpan, because they were estimated two different parts of this.
Yeah.
So can I understand, so you're saying that the total swing space based on these is how much?
Was $4.4 million,
Which is
which is about $500,000 more than what Vertex had estimated for the swing space over at the old DPW space.
okay, so thank you for doing that. Like, that's great that we have this information, because now when we hear that the swing space isn't right, and I've Googled or I've called, we have backup in documents that show that context was correct, that number was right, and quite frankly, Vertex, I'm sorry. I'm gonna take a little like pat on the back. We didn't spend $44,000 for that. We asked our OPM to provide us the information based on their experience, and that's what they did, and we've just confirmed that. So thank you guys. I know that was a lot of work. I appreciate it.
And what Vertex did, and Steve, correct me if I miss anything, but they based it on a similar project done in another place at the same time. And so, it's called, as Sarah pointed out at the time, that's benchmarking.
Yep.
You didn't design it for our specific place, but they did benchmark it from a similar project that was being done during this time frame. So some of the estimates that we were given and companies we were given, that's fine to talk to somebody on the phone, hey, give us an estimate, but that, I believe, that didn't include prevailing wage, didn't include shipping, it didn't include some installation like we found. It doesn't include installing the overhead doors, it doesn't include bringing in electricity, a lot of things that are needed to make this operational, which Steve had included in his estimate.
So I'm guessing you didn't go this far, but for the things that were not included, did you put an allowance in there for all that other thing and then
I did.
increase the price also?
I did, so
Okay,
those allowances are in
They
there, and
are.
that's what brings it up to the 4.4 million.
okay,
Although I will say, I don't have pricing yet for the concrete, they're like
package.
larger ligatures of area sort of thing. I
yeah,
don't have pricing for that, so that would increase it, but that would be caught in
Yeah.
our contingency. So I
Yeah.
believe the 4.4, we cover everything,
yeah,
but I didn't specifically price out
Okay.
those things that I said weren't included.
But that's great. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, I know you and the chief both worked hard, and thank you to these companies. Because it gives us more evidence and clear evidence that these estimates are good estimates.
And one of the Google companies too, right?
Me too. They were both recommended by the community, so, yeah, good.
So
Thank
now
you.
we're gonna go back to our day job.
Yeah, exactly.
Running the town. Thanks.
Excellent. Okay, any other discussion on sites or, I had reviewed site matrix, but I don't think that we need to review it right now. Because we're waiting on more information from 984. I will say in December and January, we're gonna go pretty quickly. So you might be, as your homework, reviewing your site matrix based on the reports we have, see if you change any of your numbers.
So that site matrix is gonna be down to 3,
Right,
right?
correct.
Which means, and we've already done 72. Not a lot changes on that.
Right.
Because we made some
So it's
additional
between
changes.
the two.
So it'll be between the two. And
Right,
we've already done some on 13.
we did do some on,
And then my other question is, remember this thing? This.
yes.
So are we gonna look at this again?
Yes, but this is what I'm thinking, and you can disagree
And
with,
Larry, what I showed her was the list of the cuts,
right,
potential cuts
yeah.
that we looked at before and then we were gonna look at again.
right.
Sorry.
We need to make a decision on warrant articles, final language by January 8th. So all of our meetings, in my mind, through then are going through any data we have, reading draft warrant articles and finalizing warrant articles. As soon as we're done with that at our next meeting in January, now we start talking about how much are we gonna tell the town this is gonna cost.
Yeah.
Context is gonna come in with some estimates, the conceptual estimates. And then we can be looking at this to say, if it comes in at 32 million, can we take off another 2 million? So yes, we will be going through that, but I feel like we don't need that till town meeting, so we have
We have the
January,
time between that.
February. Yeah,
But can we, because at that point we'll have chosen a site, can we just, can context, Vertex, just confirm the information they've put on here based on the site? Does any of this change because of the new site? I don't think so. Any of the savings they proposed? I don't think so, but I'm not sure. And so before we do that, I think it would be great if we just.
we can ask
Just a
that.
quick look.
We're on limited time with them, so we
Yeah.
can ask if they have the time to do that,
Okay.
yeah.
Just a very.
It's very generic, but just,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
But I would guess that since those were based on the design for 72 Stowe Road,
and that's what we're
that
thinking
that
about.
doesn't change much.
Yeah.
Until we get to a new design that might change because of a different
Right.
site. And that's a guess on my part.
Yeah, and that's fine. And maybe they just confirm that. Like,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that if we're gonna be working off of that,
right.
that information is still valid if we end up either 1300, 984 or 72, wherever we end up.
Yeah. Okay. And they are gonna take that conceptual design and put it on the other 2 sites, so we have that mapped. Okay. Special town meeting, okay, so one thing I wanna talk about here is, we do have we have our timeline that we talked about last time. And I just want to see, so December 5th is coming, so we need to get our warrant article placeholder in, so Mike and I will work on that.
That's just,
That's just a placeholder, yeah. We just want to make sure we have,
The placeholder, I can get that in there because that's just,
Yeah.
site 1, site 2, design fee.
design fee,
And
think it's
at
3.
that point, if you're down to, just one site, then
Right,
it's-
we drop one.
the site
Yeah.
acquisition and your design fee. I think.
You're doing separate, Mary, the acquisition separate and the design separate, or are you combining them?
Oh, I was thinking separate,
Separate, okay.
yeah, I think it's easier.
I think
for
so
the
too, because I think if you do it, because especially if we go with 2 pieces of property, that's a lot of information in
Right.
one warrant.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you'd end up with it, vote A, vote B, vote C, and then that gets too complicated. It's
Okay.
simple, just to keep them separate.
So one of the things I want us to look at, if you guys can look at your calendars, is, so as I said, we have to vote final by January 8th and get our language in by the morning of the 9th.
Yeah.
So the way our meetings go, we have, let me just look at this, it's on the back of our agenda. We have a meeting on December 4th and December 11th.
Mhm.
And then people had conflicts for the 18th. There's a holiday for some folks on the 25th. New Year's Day is January 1st. And then we come to the 8th. And I'm wondering, is that going to be enough time, or do we want to try to meet on another day before the 8th? So we have more time for discussion and all of that. One thing we could propose is January 2nd. It's a Friday. I don't know if people are working. You may be on holiday. I'm getting nasty looks.
No, not nasty, just questioning.
Or earlier the week of the 5th, but I know we have issues with select board meeting and FinCom meeting and all of that. So I don't know, or we just say we're gonna do it on the 8th and people are gonna do their homework in between and we come ready to make decisions.
I think we should have an extra meeting in there for Kim.
So we have I have FinCom on the 6th. Do you have a select board meeting on the 5th?
I don't think it's until the.
Usually it's the second, right? 12th, right?
Ooh, so the 5th? Could we do January 5th?
With my work.
Unless we end up adding a meeting too from our end.
Well,
Right
why
now
would you,
there isn't, right?
but you can't add, you won't have the information until we have it done.
Yeah,
Right.
So, and the 12th works, is this select board signs Rex,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Cause you'll have final information, things,
Fifth?
the 5th works for me.
Larry, does that work for you? It looks like everyone else.
January 5th?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so it's gonna be January 5th and January 8th.
Boy, we're gonna spend an awful lot of time to get that.
I know, and Mike, I'm gonna put in, say it out loud right now. We wanna post by December 29th. And if folks are out, we'll post before the holiday, so, that way for the 5th in particular, because you know, the 1st is a holiday, so we have to post before the 1st, so,
Do you know about the town hall, Mike?
What, is there a place to meet?
If it's available, you mean?
Yes, available on the
It's
fifth.
available.
yeah.
So all of these days we're at the town hall as usual?
No,
we're,
December 4th, you're here.
December 4th, we're here.
Again, that's at 7:30?
Yeah, 7 PM if we want executive,
Okay.
which we're gonna want. So
Okay.
7 PM for executive, and then December 11th, January 5th, and January 8th will all be at the town hall, starting at 7.
On the 5th, January 5th, Wellbeing Committee has the Grange reserved, but I don't see the Morse Hillburg reserve, so I'll see about Morse Hillburg. I'll also see if Wellbeing can move to
Well,
Massachusetts.
usually does the mornings.
Right.
They
You know what,
usually.
you're right, it's 10 to 12.
Oh,
Sorry, didn't
okay, I
look at
was
the
gonna
time.
say.
So I'll book to the Grange further for us, good. Should have bought this.
Yeah, they're not meeting 10 to 12 PM.
I know it's a lot of time together, but these are big decisions we're making in a timely
And
way.
we get to spend a Saturday all together
All
too.
right, all right.
That's January 3rd. Yes. By the time we get to the 5th.
So December 4th, I'm gonna come to the meeting with draft warrant articles with X's in place for things. But that way we can pick at the language and then get that set. So then when we can plug things in, we can go a little faster.
Steve's got his hand up.
Okay,
You can
Steve?
Steve, you should be able to unmute, just.
Should
Looks like he's unable to.
I thought I made him co-host.
You did, he's a co-host.
Oh, there
There
it
he is.
Steve?
Sorry, I must have done that by accident. I did not.
You're
And to
probably
raise my
waving your
hand.
hands around like I do, and then I do that at work and I set
Sorry.
things up. Okay. All right, so that would take us to public outreach update, and we have our dates for that,
Yeah, we
so.
don't really, the only thing is we were gonna move it to 11 o'clock that day,
Yes,
and I didn't, did you check with, BXB-TV?
I did not.
All right,
I'm happier with 11.
great.
all right.
Excellent. So they're on, so we're good.
Okay. Excellent.
Because, yeah, I think you were in at our last meeting, so I don't think that was, yeah.
We just review the dates and times again, please.
Again,
Jan 28th.
Yep.
11 and 7.
at the Great Bridge. And then where's the pre-town meeting, or where are we with that?
It's gonna be here. We don't have the date nailed down yet, though, but, Alec, Bijan and I will work on that. We are working on that.
And then we haven't really met, because we're sort of at a standstill.
Yeah,
Once we have a site pick, we'll very quickly be able to pull together the stuff we need to pull together. And then there's the possibility of, somebody who likes the cold going to Winterfest. I will not be going. I don't like the cold.
Sarah and I.
Although I will say, one time when my kids were younger, it was 70 degrees on Winterfest. And I walked down there with the kids, we were drinking hot chocolate, and it was the most beautiful January ever. It was 70 degrees, so I'll go if it's 70 degrees. Happy to join you. Put that in the minutes.
okay, I'm just putting all this in my calendar, so I actually go to it.
Podcast studio is available for you guys whenever you want.
Okay.
Podcast. I think once we pick a site, we'll probably go back to doing a couple YouTube things, podcasts, whatever, that kind of stuff. But without a site, there's just nothing left that we can really put out there.
Yeah,
So
it's tough, yeah.
we did find a typo on our webpage on Tuesday night at FinCom. John Conner brought up the Fire Station Building Committee webpage, and instead of 984 Mass Ave, we said 984 Massive. So, but Rajon was there, and we asked him to fix it, and he said, I'll take care of that. So I hadn't looked at it in a while, I guess we should occasionally, but he did fix that, so. But that's it, we don't really have anything else, right, girls? No.
Okay. So that takes us to the minutes. And I'm just looking for my right packet of minutes. So we have minutes from October 16th, October 23rd, and November 13th. So let's start with October 16th.
Okay, Alan.
I found one thing that needs clarification, I think. At the bottom of page 2, the second paragraph up that starts, Mr. Shaw stated, the next sentence says, there will not need to be as large of an expense for this study. Compared to what? Where's the rest of the sentence? There will not need to be as large of an expense for this study. As
What's the
what?
sentence before?
Compared to what? Seems like there's something missing.
Okay, Town Administrator John stated that he was approached yesterday by a landowner interested in selling their property. Additional research should be done on this property. The site is large enough to fit the program and is located centrally in town. The price may be attractive. The committee may want to consider approving some money for studies on the land. Mr. Shaw stated
Yeah,
that
keep
some
going.
material about this site has been compiled from existing records. He spoke with the civil engineer and drafted a scope to give a fuller understanding of the property. There will not need to be as large of an expense for this study. I can only think it's compared to 70.
The study of the property.
Yeah, because of
Because
of all the
of
information that they
existing
need.
So it makes
information.
So,
Yeah.
Okay.
May not be particularly well written. but-
Yeah,
Or it could be exactly what he said, because when
Right.
you're having a conversation, you don't actually
Oh,
speak the way
fully-
you necessarily
yeah.
never write it.
anything else on those minutes? Okay, let's go to any comments on the 23rd, minutes from October 23rd.
Oh,
On page 2, the second bullet item down. I guess it's the third sentence from the end. It says, no study been completed.
Has been.
Has been.
Yeah.
No study has been, okay.
And then, under item 4, the big paragraph under item 4. Way at the bottom of the last sentence says, these additional items bring to total. I think it's supposed to be
Bring
bring
that
the
total.
total.
Bring that total, yeah. The total cost estimate back to approximately 4 million, yep.
Yep.
All right. And there's one more set of minutes, November 13th.
Item 2, at the top there.
Yeah.
The very last 5 words. It says, and to determined, and then there's half of a parenthetical phrase there. And to determine what?
Okay,
It's got
it's
the word
held to
vote.
consider the purchase pursuant to, and to, it was to vote the minutes and determine whether to make them public. So it's and to vote previous minutes and determine whether to make them public.
Good.
Yeah.
Under item 6,
I'm still writing this.
where it's talking about today's meeting, it says it's at the library at 7:30, but do we have to say it actually started at 7? or
No,
that's it?
because on that day we said 7:30,
Okay.
then we discussed and moved it
Afterwards,
to,
yeah.
yeah.
And it'll be in minutes from tonight, the actual start time.
Right.
so.
Did you get all that, Mike?
I did.
Okay. So because we amended them, I think we should vote each step separately. Because for the last 2, we want to say as amended.
I think all of them be amended.
We didn't amend October 16th.
Oh, because it's made,
Yeah.
that makes sense, okay.
Yeah,
Person was gonna vote. I was gonna make a motion to vote to amend, to approve Alan's minutes.
But seriously, can I have a motion to approve the minutes from October 16, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
So Maria moved, I heard Alan second. I'm going to take a roll call vote. Alan?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Priya?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Mary? Aye. Okay,
Do we have 2 more sets after that?
Yeah.
Can we just give both
yeah,
dates?
those are
Can you
both
give me the
amended,
dates?
so October 23rd and November 13th as amended.
November
Yeah,
13th.
so I move to accept the minutes of October 23rd and November 13th as amended.
Second.
Okay, I heard Maria move and Sarah second. And I'm gonna take a roll call vote. Alan?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
So then I,
Neil and I.
Sarah?
I,
Larry?
Aye.
Roland, aye. Okay,
Spin out.
all right, so that's the minutes. We have a budget and invoice approval, so, Steve, if you want to share that and bring it up. And for everyone, you should be, if you have a paper copy of it, it should be a copy that is edited, like it's got cross out, so you know it's the right one. There was an
Yeah,
update.
and actually, Mary, we were able, it was late this afternoon, we were able to get those completed and submitted, but it was not in time to really distribute. So everybody should be looking at what I'm calling the redlined a set of the VIP, but this is more the completed. So the invoices for October, and the reason I'll give a little history. The reason we had to correct things is because of the reimbursable to Alec Wade. He had purchased some supplies that had sales tax on it, and we had to take the sales tax off. So that's why we had to do the revisions. So the invoices that we have, and this is for October, we have the Vertex invoice 14, for $4,948.75. We have Context invoice 13 for $9,245. We have the Kristen Patnod meeting minutes invoice for $425.91. I believe that was 3 meetings worth. And then Alec Wade had a reimbursable to him for supplies that he bought for the pre-town meeting. One was from Staples for $459.11, and the other was from Market Basket for $47.78. Total of all the invoices is $15,126.55. And then you have the Vertex invoice, the Context invoice, the Kristen Patnod invoice, and that was for 3 meeting minutes. And then we've got the reimbursement sheet, cover sheet for Alec Wade, and the two invoices, and we're just showing that the mass sales tax was crossed off of the Staples invoice.
What was the bottom line, Steve? 15 what?
It was $15,126.55. So
move that we approve the invoice, the October invoice of $15,126.55.
Second.
Mac moved, Priya seconded. Any discussion or questions? Okay, roll call vote. Alan?
Aye.
Mac?
Aye.
Priya?
Aye.
Maria?
Neil Beckers.
Sarah?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
And Berlin, aye. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
And then you'll see the budget update, and right now there's,
The budget is showing,
Yeah.
and this is through the end of October,
Right.
$53,382 left in our original $500,000 appropriation.
Yeah.
Now,
And
so
we
that's
just
going to
spent
go down
some of
because of some of the amendments, but those will
Yeah,
show up
right.
in November.
yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, so then we have a reminder for our meeting dates, December 4th, again here at 7 PM. December 11th at Town Hall at 7 PM. January 5th now, which is not on this list, but we just added, and January 8th, both at 7 PM at the Town Hall. Any other updates? No, I see everyone shaking their head. Okay, I'm gonna move us to public input at the end of the meeting. If anyone online has any input, please raise your hand or put on your camera. We'll unmute you.
Yep, see the hands raised.
All right, seeing none, I would take a motion to adjourn
So moved.
at 8:41.
So moved at 8:41.
Second.
Okay, Maria moved, Alan seconded, roll call vote. Alan?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Priya?
Aye.
Maria?
Neil and I.
Sarah?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
And Brolin, aye. All right, thank you, everyone.